The room went silent the moment the words landed, heavy and cruel, like a final blow meant to crush what little hope was left. The CEO stood tall at the head of the glass-walled boardroom, her face tight with anger and authority, while the single father sat across from her, shoulders squared, eyes steady. Everyone expected him to break. Everyone expected desperation, excuses, maybe even tears. But what happened next was something no one in that room would ever forget. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet strength in the face of cruelty, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even the darkest moments can change lives. He had arrived early that morning, like he always did, his lunch packed carefully beside his laptop, his phone set to silent in case his daughter's school called. Being a single dad was not something he advertised at work, but it shaped every part of his life. Morning started before sunrise, with cereal bowls and homework checks, tying shoelaces with tired hands, and promising his little girl that everything would be okay even when he wasn't sure himself. This job wasn't just a paycheck, it was stability, safety, and dignity wrapped into one fragile routine. The company meant everything to him. Not because it was glamorous, but because it had given him a chance when his life was falling apart. After his wife passed away suddenly, the world had turned cold and unforgiving. Bills piled up, grief swallowed his nights, and exhaustion became a constant companion. Still, he showed up. He stayed late, learned faster, worked harder, and never complained. He believed that if he kept his head down and his heart strong, things would eventually get better. But the CEO didn't see that man. She saw numbers, performance charts, and a convenient target for her frustration. The company had been under pressure for months, investors demanding answers, the board whispering doubts behind closed doors. Someone had to take the fall, and she chose him. Maybe because he was quiet. Maybe because he didn't fight back. Maybe because she assumed he was weak. The meeting was meant to humiliate him. Executives lined the walls, watching like spectators at a trial. The glass windows reflected his image back at him, a tired man in a worn jacket, hands folded calmly in his lap. Inside, his heart pounded. His daughter's face flashed in his mind. The rent. The school fees. The promises he had made. Fear pressed against his chest, threatening to steal his breath. Yet he didn't beg. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply listened as his entire future was dismissed in a few cold sentences. The CEO expected him to snap, to plead, to give her the satisfaction of seeing him crumble. But instead, something unexpected happened. He breathed in slowly. Years of grief had taught him that panic never saved anyone. Calm had. Patience had. Love had. He straightened his back, met her eyes, and answered with a composure that unsettled the room. His response wasn't defensive or bitter. It was honest, respectful, and deeply human. He acknowledged the decision, thanked the company for the opportunity, and spoke about responsibility, integrity, and the value of treating people with dignity even in hard moments. That calm response hit harder than any argument ever could. The executives shifted in their seats. One of them looked down, ashamed. Another frowned, as if seeing the situation clearly for the first time. The CEO herself faltered, just for a second. She had prepared for anger, not grace. For chaos, not quiet strength. The power dynamic shifted in that moment, subtle but undeniable. As he walked out of the building, his box of belongings heavy in his arms, the weight of reality finally settled in. The sky outside was gray, the city loud and indifferent. He sat on a bench, staring at his phone, wondering how he would explain this to his daughter without breaking her sense of safety. Tears burned behind his eyes, but he held them back. He had promised himself he would always be strong for her, even when he felt anything but. Days passed, then weeks. Rejection emails filled his inbox. Interviews went nowhere. Savings dwindled. He sold small things, skipped meals, and smiled through it all at home. At night, when his daughter slept, he allowed himself to feel the fear he hid during the day. The world felt unfair, and the silence after losing his job was louder than any shouting match could have been. What he didn't know was that his calm response had planted a seed. Inside the company, the fallout was spreading. Word of the meeting traveled fast. Employees whispered about how unfair it had been, how cold the decision looked from the outside. Productivity dipped. Morale cracked. Investors began asking questions, not about profits, but about leadership and culture. One board member replayed the scene again and again in his mind, haunted by the dignity of a man who had been treated as disposable. Eventually, the truth surfaced. Reports revealed that the failures blamed on him were not his alone. Poor strategic decisions at the top had caused far more damage than his department ever had. The narrative the CEO had built began to collapse. Accountability knocked, and it was loud. Then came the call. He almost didn't answer, thinking it was another rejection. When he realized who it was, his hands trembled. The voice on the other end was different this time. Careful. Respectful. Apologetic. They spoke of misunderstandings, of reassessments, of lessons learned. They spoke of his professionalism, his character, and the impression he had left on everyone who witnessed that meeting. He was offered his job back. Not just that, but a promotion, a public apology, and a role that allowed him to shape the very culture that had once tried to break him. He didn't rush to say yes. That pause was powerful. He thought about his daughter, about the nights he had doubted himself, about the pain he had swallowed in silence. He agreed, not for revenge, but for growth. He returned with boundaries, with clarity, and with a quiet determination to make sure no one else felt as small as he once had. The CEO stepped down months later, her leadership replaced by something more human, more accountable. The company began to heal, not because of policies, but because of empathy. And at the center of that change was a single father who had refused to let bitterness define him. Near the end of this story, if it's touching your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to support more stories like this. Your engagement truly helps keep these messages alive. He walked his daughter to school one bright morning, the sun warm on their faces. She laughed, holding his hand, unaware of how close they had come to losing everything. He watched her skip ahead and felt something stronger than fear, stronger than pain. Hope. Before this video ends, I want to ask you something special. Please comment below and share what this story made you feel, or write a message to anyone out there who's going through a hard time right now. Because sometimes, the calmest response in the cruelest moment doesn't just change a situation. It changes everything.